as professional problem solvers, as most of us are, when there is a problem we really can't solve, it is painful and stressful, and it is something that we need to actively address if we want to continue to be the people that we need to be to the people around us.
Well, welcome back to the TrustBuilt Podcast. I am your host, Alan Bennett, and we are going to talk about all things trust. Trust is our game around here, and today's guest is going to enlighten you on particularly stress. We're going to talk about stress, but we're going to talk about what building trust should look like in a great world, right? And today's guest is Eliz Greene. It's not Elizabeth, it is Eliz Greene. So welcome to the show, Eliz.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. And it is actually Elizabeth.
Oh, it is?
Five of us.
Yeah,
there were five of us in my high school class. So I chose a different name. So I didn't have to be Little Lizzie and Big Lizzie didn't have to be Big Lizzie.
Okay. All right. Well, it's good to know. And, we were talking before we started the recording, we were talking about some commonality and some backgrounds. If you could give the audience an idea of how did you get where you are now? I know it can be a long story, but give us a setting of who we're talking to.
How did I get started talking about stress and jobs and all of that? So, interesting question. It is going to be the 25th anniversary of what got me started next month. It's also my girl's 25th birthday. I have soon to be 25-year-old twins. When I was 7 months pregnant with them, I had a massive heart attack. And fortunately, I had great care right away. So I'm still here. They're thriving. But that experience dealing with all of the uncertainty and the overwhelm after having a heart attack and an open heart surgery and a cesarean section, that was a big changing day for all of us, husband included. That set me on this path with this wacky story to make other people pay attention to their heart health, but particularly to stress and how that impacts our health so that people can live longer, feel better, and get more of the important stuff done.
I know I didn't tell you this. I'm a twin. And yeah, he's the ugly one. So I understand the life that, twins in general can just add stress because there's double of everything. And they feed off of each other, which there's some support because you've got this counterpart to work through things. So I know I'm taking the lens of your daughters, but there is a whole world that people that don't have twins don't understand. And where your story is, there's so much to unpack there. Not only the heart attack in itself is its own thing, but being the mother of all this that's going on, even if they're perfect children, there's two of them.
There's two of them, and they were 2 months early. So it was a lot. But it did set my husband and I on this path of really looking for what is possible as opposed to really dwelling on what was difficult. And that has served us well over the 34 years of our marriage.
A funny story that you can probably relate to this, a funny story that my mother would tell. My dad worked, who ironically died of a heart attack at 42. But the story that she would tell is she was a stay-at-home mom with two twin babies. And when one would cry, the other one would start crying, and usually it was my brother would cry first, and I'd look over at him. I'm like, well, I guess I'm that's my cue to start crying. And so she had two, and she couldn't shake. We were big enough to where she couldn't shake both of us, or, not shake, it's to
Bounce.
rock,
Do that
bounce.
little mommy bounce.
Yes, the mommy bounce. And it was too much for her. She's 5'4". She's not a big person anyway. And what she would do was she would hold one, and then the other one, she put a shoe in the dryer, and she adjusted the legs to where the dryer would rock, and she'd turn it on so it would be noise and rocking, and that's how she took care of the other one.
Yeah. Yeah. When you're a mother of twins, you have to be very, very inventive. I will admit to putting duct tape on the diapers because one of my girls was just a little magician. She could reach in and get her diaper off, and then reach in and get her sister's diaper off. So it wasn't on skin. It was just to keep it keep it there. Yeah, you have to be a little creative when you're on zone defense all of the time.
Absolutely. So I know we were sharing some stories here, but I wanted to set not to just get to, hey, we'll find some common ground here, but these were real life situations, motherhood, trying to build a family. And then let's go back to stress and what that does. The numbness, I guess, would be a good word to talk about stress. Let's unpack that a little bit. Talk about what you experienced and how that felt.
Well, I think one of the things that I came out of the whole experience was that I really needed to do the work on the inside so that I could handle all of the things on the outside that I couldn't control. There were lots of things I couldn't control as a young mom. I mean, there's always things in our environment we can't control that cause us stress. That's just the natural reaction to what's in our environment. And that is really what stress is. Something in your environment is uncertain or threatening in some way. All kinds of things start happening in here. Our heart rate goes up, our blood pressure goes up, our blood even gets stickier. If that thing was perhaps a car accident, maybe we wouldn't bleed to death. That's all great. We become very hyperfixated on the problem at hand. That's all great if we're trying to avoid a car accident. What isn't great is when our stress reaction is constantly being triggered by uncertainty in our world, by overwhelm, by whatever it is in our environment. That stress reaction that goes up when we need it and is supposed to come down when we don't, never gets a chance to come down. And that cortisol, the stress hormone that's in our body to make all of that happen, keeps all of those things high. So none of us need a higher heart rate, higher blood pressure, or stickier blood. That's how stress impacts heart health. It's one of the major risk factors for heart health. So I learned early on in my momness that I needed to take care of this if I was going to stick around. And that's really what I've been doing for the last quarter century, is sharing the things I figured out for myself and have worked with clients on for years of how do we handle all the pressure in here so that we can withstand the pressure out there.
I wasn't going down the emotional intelligence path, but I found myself going to that as you were sharing, being self-aware of what's going on. And I think that's where what you're talking about. To me, that's what you're describing, is being self-aware and how to understand what's going on, whether it's in here or here, having that awareness.
Yeah, absolutely. It's recognizing the signs that your body and brain send you. And everybody has different symptoms of that high level of stress. Mine definitely lives in my stomach. When something happens and I'm stressed, this all starts to gurgle and be upset. And that's a cue to me that what's going on here? Some people get like tingly or sweaty. Some people get a headache. Some people can feel that sort of racing heart feeling. It's really about recognizing those signals figuring out what it is that you can do to reduce that cortisol level, to bring that back to normal so you can get rid of those symptoms so that whatever is causing that, and sometimes it's something that isn't going away, we can reduce this pressure so that we can interact with that in a way that's not going to harm our health. We can still work well. We can still live well.
There's an art to that.
It's a practice.
Yeah.
Right?
And a perishable skill.
Right. Yes.
When, of course, I live in the world of the business owners and how to handle emotional situations, right? Especially from a leadership perspective. How to do that. It's in the business world, it's not necessarily life-threatening. Not necessarily, but...
Not necessarily.
It may feel like it, though, especially with a panic attack. You think you're dying.
Oh, yeah.
So talk a little bit about in intense situations when the stress level goes up, everybody has, and let's just say they are not self-aware. They don't know that, my face turning red or whatever my trigger is that does that. It becomes less about what they're targeting and more about winning or about controlling. Unpack that a little bit.
So, right. I think control is one of those things that we all want and get frustrated because we can't really have it.
So,
and in that very nature, that's stressful. When things are uncertain, things are unpredictable, out of our control, we become very stressed. All of that's happening in our body. We also feel vulnerable, which most of us do not like. And with all that cortisol running around in our body, our brains cannot think critically and creatively, which is really what we need to get out of the situation we're in. So when we recognize that this is one of those situations, and sometimes it's other people that cause those things, other people who say things and do things, and you're like, why? I don't understand. Like, why would you make that decision in this situation? And now I'm going to have to clean that up. So, all of a sudden you're on high alert, everything, your cortisol's through the roof. But in that moment, if we can recognize that I am not in a state where I'm going to be able to critically and creatively solve this problem, and I need to just step one step back and take a breath. Just one step back. And I like, in the example that somebody just came and dumped a problem on your head, it is often very helpful to ask yourself some questions. I was just writing about this today. Looking back and thinking about, take that step back and say, what about this can I control? Most of it you can't control, but there are things that you can control. You can control your own response. You can control how you show up to your people in the situation. And there's usually something else you can control. And once you have said, okay, I'm not going to focus on that and that and that because I can't control that, what is possible? And when you start thinking about what is possible, it leads you down a different path. It reduces that, I need to control it. And it allows that cortisol level to come down. And it seems like a very simple thing to step back and ask yourself, what can I control? What is possible? It works.
You're talking about a chemical reaction that's going on within someone, right? And in order, so if the internal body chemistry is working in one direction, it's not easy to just cut that thing off and say, go back to the other doorway.
Well, the really cool thing about it is, though, we are designed to get the cortisol out of our body. Just sometimes we have to help our bodies do that. And there are lots of things that signal our body that something has changed, and we can let that cortisol go. Because it's just a reaction in your environment. If we can change that environment, we can tell our bodies to let go of the cortisol, which is why breathing actually works. Anytime we're stressed, our breath is very short and shallow. If we can just lengthen it, that is a signal to the body that something has changed and you can let that cortisol go. Getting your heart rate up and bringing it back down again does the same thing. Changing your location or your view, what you're looking at, can do the same thing. So when you're in a heated conversation, saying, hey, why don't we go over here, can reduce that level. Everybody's moving. Our cortisol levels are coming down. It's a really easy way to sort of like defuse that, what's going on for the other person and yourself, and allow the cortisol to come down and re-engage in a different way. Taking a drink of water, same thing.
So I've never thought about that. So physically moving your body to a different spot, even if it's the same room, or you're just saying just the physical movement?
Just standing up, doing anything that shifts, tells your body, we are doing something different now. You could let go of that. Allows your body to say, okay, things are all right. In a lot of time when I'm talking about this reaction and how we're going to get out of it, especially when we're talking about uncertainty, our brains really love a predictable environment. It's very happy when everything around us is very predictable. Unfortunately, we don't live in a predictable world. There are things that come up and are uncertain, and that triggers our stress response. But if we can find ways to tell our brain, we have been here before, we know what to do, your brain goes, cool. We've been here before, I know what to do. Excellent. It's why we train for CPR. Because if somebody drops, that's a very, very, very stressful situation. But if you have trained to know what to do, your brain just goes, well, I know what to do. And you act, right? Same thing. We can train our brain that something unpredictable is more predictable. We have been here before. We know what to do. I'm an avid sailor. When my husband came to me when the girls were 6 years old and said, hey, let's take the boat from the Wisconsin side of Lake Michigan to the Michigan side of Lake Michigan, a 15 to 17 hour trip across very cold water, I said, no, that just does not seem like a good idea. And there were all of these things that made me really scared about doing that with our children when the lake's unpredictable, the wind is unpredictable. But my husband is very persuasive, which is why we keep getting puppies. And we worked this system that we had really developed when the girls were born. What can I control? What is possible? We just kept working it, and we learned how to do things like crew overboard drills and have the right equipment to keep people on the boat and do that sort of thing. And we gained the confidence to the point where I could say, okay, let's do that. Now, I am repeating in my head, we've been here before, we know what to do. We've been here before, we know what to do. Because I'm a big fan of saying things to myself in my head when I get worried about things. And that's what got us through. And any time you're dealing with things that are very, very unpredictable, either in your personal life or at work, if you can do things to make your brain and other people's brain think, it's all right. We've been here before, we know what to do. It reduces that stress and lets us move forward with confidence, and our brains are able to think creatively and critically.
Okay, I'm going to bait you into a hole here. And it's
All right, I'm ready.
One of the challenges, as a business coach, I'm always working with leaders on how, the thing that where I work with people is around owner dependency. And what that means is the owner's too involved in the business. How do we get the team to take over? So that's kind of my world, right?
Yep.
To trust, to build the team. And one of the things that I do to help with that is to train them that discipline equals freedom. Systems and processes and having predictability creates freedom. And that's a hard thing to grasp for a lot of people.
It's a very hard thing to grasp for a lot of people.
But you're describing systems and processes and predictability.
Yes, absolutely. And I think what is most challenging, that those of us who would fall into the high achiever category, which is probably most of your business owner clients. It's like people have created things and grown things and scaled things, but we are a finite resource, right? If we really want to grow and scale, we have to figure out where we fit in that process. And it's very hard to give up the control of day to day. Most of us like those things too. Like, I take a lot of pride in being able, putting the boat away after we race on Friday night. We have a big crew. I like things done a certain way. Lines get tied on the cleats a certain way. Things get put away a certain way. And I have to repeat to myself, there is more than one right way to do this. And sometimes when you step back enough to allow people to do things that they are fully capable of, but they're in your realm and you want them done the way you want them to be done, if you step back up enough and let them do it, they come up with a better way.
Who'd have thought?
Which would not have happened if I controlled the situation completely and made them do it just my way all of the time, or came behind them and fixed it all the time. When you offer the opportunity and your trust that you know that they're capable, you know that they have learned the ropes, literally, and allow them to do it, magic can happen. And it isn't easy to let go of that control at all.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of self-talk sometimes.
Yes, it's stressful.
Just to back up and let people do it. But, oh man, the opportunity is incredible when you give people that trust and that empowerment.
Yeah, for me, I guess to get down to the bottom of it, where I see people struggle is understanding the difference between discipline and being rigid.
Oh, yeah.
There's a big difference, but a lot of people they don't see it that way. They see them one and the same. And to me, rigid creates stress.
Well, and it also boxes you in. I agree. I agree with that. And it's also stressful on both sides, right? Because you have the leader who is like, it has to be like this. And you have the team member who's like, but I really think I have a better way that would help us, and the team member doesn't feel seen or valued in the situation. And these are the people that you want to stay, and they'll leave if you don't give them the trust and the latitude to do their job as well as they can. One of the leadership insights from my book, because I had talked to hundreds of leaders and team members in my research, is that the most effective leaders solve problems so their people can do their best work. So if I'm saying to my people all the time, how's it going? What could I do to make that work better for you? that's a whole different conversation than you aren't doing this exactly the way I told you to do this. Because sometimes maybe they can't do it the exact way you told them to do it. So it's really opening up the door, giving them the support and the predictability of the way you're going to show support for them and solve problems for them when they come along so that they can shine.
There's a couple of things I want to bite on here, but there's a lot there. But I want to back up a step and go to, you made this in your response there, you were talking about being seen and valued. Let's go down that path. Of all the things I heard, I want to go down that one. And let's look at it from the team member's perspective, not being seen or not feeling valued, and how that impacts the organization. Talk about that a little bit.
Sure. A lot of times that comes down to communication. And leaders can feel like they're sending the right messages, that they're letting people know that what they're doing is good or whatever. Everybody likes to be told that they're doing a good job. It is very easy to miss the connection, though, between what some individual person is doing and the bigger picture. Because we're always, most of us are grinding away every day. Like there's a to-do list this big and the inbox is full and you're just whack-a-mole and your way through the day. So if you're there and you can't figure out as a team member what all of this whack-a-mole nonsense means to anything unrelated to these moles that I'm whacking. But sometimes whacking those moles are really important. But if the leader never says, hey, thank you for doing that, I just wanted to let you know, because you did all that, we were able to do this. Or because you handled that, this process works so much better. It's a little thing, but now whacking those moles feels like an important job. I know how it's relating to everything else. And I'm willing to walk through fire to get that done because I know somebody else is counting on it. And it makes a difference in the organization. When I was working with NASA, one of the things I do a survey of or a cross-section, depending on how big the organization is, of all levels. And it often uncovers some blind spots. So, for example, as people were coming back at Kennedy Space Center, the people who assemble the rockets and blast them off into space, they knew that was going to be a stressful situation. So we worked together. One of the things that I discovered is their third shift didn't know why they needed to be on center at that time, because it didn't seem like they really needed to be there after a couple of years of not being on center. And the leadership really felt like they had communicated that well, but the people weren't hearing it in the way they needed to hear it. And the answer was they needed to be there because sometimes things go very, very wrong and they need those people on center to solve it when that arises. That's an important reason to be there, but if you're not driving that message home, it feels like, well, why did I have to go actually shower and drive here? No.
Yeah, where you went with that, to me, you were playing with purpose and accountability, right? So we went from being seen and valued and transitioned into purpose. Why are we here, and why does it matter? And holding someone accountable. All right, I'm in. I'm in.
Okay, good.
Now we're
Good,
talking
good.
about engagement, employee engagement. I mean, that's
Sure.
the foundation for engagement. I know this is the Trust Built podcast, but for me, a lot of times people say, well, how do you get to trust? And well, the first thing you got to do is you got to understand purpose and accountability. And that's what you're talking about here.
Right. Well, it's all related, right? Like performance, in order for people to really perform, they have to feel safe. Like that their essentials are being addressed and they can work well in the environment. They have to know that they can trust that the leaders are going to provide what they need. They have to know where they fit in the whole organizational environment. And that's where you get just rock star performance. Is also how we avoid burnout and stress and people leaving. Because if you're grinding away and you don't feel supported and you don't feel seen and you don't feel connected to that purpose, other opportunities come up and you're like, well, let's go.
Yeah, I've had some clients in the trades business, about plumbing and electrical, HVAC, and a common theme with people who end up hiring me is, well, you just can't find good people, or we have a high turnover, or what, and that's what you're talking about is, that's why they're experiencing high turnover, or you can't find good people anymore, or he left for $5,000 a year more to go over to.
Right. Which hurts bad.
Yeah.
When you get, you're like $5,000.
Yeah. That's less than $500 a month. Right.
Right. It was like, we maybe could have found that, but it's not about that.
It's not about that.
It's just not. And I think what's very difficult for leaders is oftentimes, because we are playing whack-a-mole, we are also so close to it. It is hard to see what we can't see. We think we know what our culture is. We think we know how well we're doing engaging with our employees and making people feel valued. But unless we actually find out, we don't know what our culture really is. That is what other people experience, not what leaders experience.
Yeah, I had a situation not too long ago where I guess the owner didn't understand. He thought they had a good culture, and what he thought was a good culture is, hey, we have every year we get together and we have a big picnic and families are coming out, and we have employee of the month, and to him that he was doing everything right to build culture, right? And based on your laugh, I think you see culture a different way.
I do. It very much is the environment you create for people to work in. So I like to think about everything as the environment that you're sitting in. And so there are lots of things that are part of that environment. I worked with independent garden centers a while back. And those are not the big box places where you go to buy your plants and flowers, but the small, independently owned type of things. We have one not too far from here. And they, for the most part, earn the majority of their income in about 6 weeks out of the year. Now, if you're in the South, you get an extra little bump. But here in the Midwest, that's 6 weeks. That is a lot of pressure, a lot of stress on everybody during that period of time. It is remarkable how hard all of these people work. And they're very committed. And so we did this, again, survey of all of the people. And it turned out that the thing that really made people crazy is that when they finally got a chance to go to the bathroom, there was no toilet paper. That is a tiny, tiny little thing that could be fixed, right? But that wasn't one person who said it. It's a lot of people who said it. It's just those little things say to the employee, we don't actually care about you that much, to make sure that this basic need is being met. So if you can find out what those blind spots are and fix them, solving the problem so people can do their best work, there you go. That's going to make a difference. That's your culture.
Yeah. I call care and recognition the low-hanging fruit, because a lot of times a business owner can fix that for little or no cost.
Yeah. Right.
It's the low-hanging fruit, and it can be as simple as the toilet paper.
Yeah.
It can be that simple.
But that's the thing where if the team member keeps experiencing that and they start reading into the intent of that, because we all write stories about what the intent of something is. And those are the sort of things, those small things that start chipping away at that trust, at that culture, and cause stress because you're feeling like you're not being valued.
Yeah, it's compassion, right? And as a mother of twins, you have to dose out the compassion in bucket loads, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so I want to, before we wind this down, because I could do this all day long.
This is fun. I like talking about this.
I want to ask. I know you've written books, and I want to get the books that you've written and why you wrote them.
Ooh, well, there's been a few. So the latest is Stress Proof Your Life, which is, I think all of the other books were drafts along the way to get to the compendium that is Stress Proof Your Life, which is really a workshop and a book. It is all the things that I, at that point, did with clients. I have some new stuff now, but all the things that I had done with clients so that people could actually go through the book and make a change. And it really addresses stress. Like, how do you figure out what's in your environment? It talks about how to deal with overwhelm, how to deal with uncertainty. What do you do about offsetting the physical impact of stress? What do you do about psychological stress? What do you do when there's just, I like to call it trouble in the bubble. Like, in this little world that is, whoever you care about most, that you need to have be safe when you put your head down on the pillow at night so you can go to sleep. That when there's trouble in there, whether that's your health, your partner's health, something going on with your kids, something going on with your parents, perhaps, those sort of things, that's a whole different category of stress, because that doesn't go away and you can't solve it. And as professional problem solvers, as most of us are, when there is a problem we really can't solve, it is painful and stressful, and it is something that we need to actively address if we want to continue to be the people that we need to be to the people around us. And it's tough, and I know in every group of people I talk to, there is somebody struggling. And they're keeping their head above water at work and at home, but they're taking a toll on the inside. And you got to make sure that you're taking care of the inside part.
Yeah. So here we are back at compassion again.
Yeah. Self-kindness. I talk about that a lot.
Yeah. It's, I'll bring up my wife again. She could write a book on how to, and you have to know yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I label her as a perfectionist, and she's not, but that's, somebody who doesn't see her like that, it's easy to, it's pick on them, but she just doesn't like being wrong, right? And there's a difference.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people with her behavioral style that she puts a lot of pressure on herself because she hates being wrong. She doesn't want to, she wants it to be right. She don't want to be the best. She just doesn't want to make a mistake. And there's a lot of stress, internal, and whether you call it anxiety or whatever you want to label it as, that there's an internal battle. It's like the duck on water. You don't see the feet working feverishly to paddle, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So as I've mentioned, I like saying things to myself in my head because it helps. One of the things I say every day is life is not about perfection. It's about moving in the right direction. And, there are times that we all take a step off the path. As long as we get back on and keep heading in the right direction, it's going to be fine. And that's one of those things that has allowed me to step back from that drive to perfection, because I think your wife and I may have that in common. Don't really like to be wrong. It is one of those things that has allowed me to, reduce all of this, but become a better leader, because if I'm giving myself that space and grace not to be perfect, giving other people the same space and grace allows everybody to thrive in the environment.
That's good stuff. All right. Going on back to the book thing. All right. So your book, are there other books, and I love the book thing. Is there other books that you personally like to read, or some favorite books that you've read?
Oh, in this realm?
Yeah.
Actually, I have been working with Darcy Loma and collaborating with something. And her book, now I'm not sure the title is Thoughtfully Fit, but that is her model, Thoughtfully Fit. She would be a great person for this podcast. First of all, she has an amazing story. Not going to tell it because it's not mine. But she really has this system for when you run into that brick wall, to look at it as not a roadblock, but a hurdle to get over. And to use a system to kind of come back. Really, she and I have a very similar manner about like what is within your control, what could I do in this situation, and then really not getting stuck in the just thinking about it and planning. And this is the perfectionist part, is like, I can think about stuff for a really long time. You got to get to action. So her stuff is fantastic.
Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that. I had a thought and I lost. It's what happens when you turn 57.
Oh, well, I'm 60, so I can relate to that.
To wrap it up, the people that are resonating with this podcast, those that are still on listening right now, if there's one message that you could send out that would be words of wisdom, or maybe some thoughts that they could leave with, if there's one thing that you would want them to walk away with, what would that be?
We have to take care of the pressure on the inside to make sure that we can withstand the pressure on the outside. And most of the time, the key to that is asking yourself, what about this can I control? And what is possible?
That's awesome. I appreciate that. I hope everybody else does. I know. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I appreciate you taking the time to do that and sharing some.
This has been delightful.
Well, good. And as a mom of twins, I am sorry for what we said.
No, it was, I think twins are, we talk about those first like 9 to 12 months is the dark times. That was tough. But once they got to a certain age, it really did get easier. And I think twins at the same age are easier than two kids that are 15 months apart in a lot of ways. Like once we got through that first year, it was okay. We were doing all right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being a great mom, and thank you for being on the podcast.
It was my pleasure.